of dudes rapping, they ain't nice as me. 98% ain't lived the same type of life as me. The judge gave me life and then they sent me where the life is be. That level 4 with depth and vice, the type of stuff they like to see. Two choices, fight or flee. I refuse to die a chump. I never been a mark, but damn, it's scary when that riot jump. I seen dudes cry, get punked, or some sexually brutalized. Knew a dude who lost his life and he was only doing 5 year-long racial fights when homie all you do is ride. Lonely days and nights up in a hole causing suicide. From the moment you arrive, you see the Mexican mafia, AB skinheads with big giant swastikas, pro-black philosophers, the BGF, the Kumi, and Muslims who will murk you from the nation to the Sunni. That MS was loony, quick to ride up on they rival. Even Christians went to church, hide knives up in they Bible. Political and tribal, the Crips and Damus, the Long Beach, the Hubs and the Dubs and the Grooves, the IE, the Bakersfield, the Dago Pyrus, the hustlers quick to roll, the gangsters don't move. Whatever clique you choose, you better stick to your rules. I done seen cats get hit and the force will lift them off their shoes. The gun tower got the power, they will kill you if you move. The gun tower got the power, they will kill you if you move.
Say what's cracking, YouTube? Say what's cracking, YouTube? It's your boy 16 to life, and I'm back like I'm on a parole violation. Yard down! Now, for those of y'all that's new to my page, in 1994, I got arrested. Eventually, I served 24 years straight in the California prison system, man. But enough of that. Let's hop right up into this video, man. Now, today, I'm going to be on something a little bit different, right? Because I know a lot of people out there, you know, they watch various YouTube channels, and you want to say, we can say either the prison genre, or we can say, you know, the black genre, the street genre, however we want to define it, right? And I know, you know, even though I've done 24 years straight in prison, I still watch a lot of these channels that I just mentioned, spoke of, you know, because that lifestyle is still intriguing for me. And when you look into things that are considered negative, you always can get a positive way of thinking from some of these videos and stuff, right? If you are looking at things in a self-help type of way, you know, you can look at an individual and say, okay, that's not something that that's not something that I'm gonna do, or something that I want to do, or something that would be, you know, in my best interest, right? And so I think a lot of times, you know, we get caught up in the experience of an individual, you know, whether, you know, especially when he's older, you know, but sometimes we get caught up in what a person's been through, and we start to, you know, like a person or whatever, and without really paying attention to what's really going on, right? So for those out there, right, let me just tell you guys, man, I want you guys to be mindful. I want you guys to be mindful, man, when, you know, when you are paying attention to some of these content creators, man. Be mindful of what you hear from one video to the next, right? Because let me tell you guys something, man. Age and experience does not always equal wisdom, right? You know, a lot of times the term OG is thrown around way too loosely in these YouTube streets, you know. Originally, the term OG stands for original gangster, right? And it is associated with an individual, man, who is an older gang member. He's wise, he's experienced, and he can basically give information to the younger gang members, right? But at a certain time in prison, if you was of a certain age, people was just calling you OG. You know, it went basically from a term of, you know, a term that was used for gang members to just a term that people would call older people, right? Without even knowing if this person was a gang member, without even knowing if this person lived up to a certain type of code, right? And so, like I say, at one point in time, that term, you know, it just started to be used way too loosely, right? And so, man, first and foremost, right, we all know, man, these streets, gang banging, life in the streets, hustling out there, more times than not, it often leads to a dead end, right? It often leads to a situation we're not going to want to be in, right? And so, in my opinion, as a real OG, right, when a person becomes an OG, you know, you are supposed to give advice to younger homies, to younger people, period, right? and let them know the pitfalls about that lifestyle, because anyone who has set up in jail for the amount of time that I set up in jail, or anyone who has been going back and forth to jail all their entire life, they should be able to get to a certain age and say, hey, you know what, man, this life was not the business, right? To sit up and waste so much time in prison, you could be accomplishing so much more on the streets. For a person to get out and still, somewhat endorse that life, it's crazy, right? So say you got one of these youngsters out here, man, who like watching, some of us who have had these prison experiences or these street experiences, right? And if you get yourself in a predicament and you go to one of these so-called OGs, man, and he's gonna give you the same type of information that a homie of your age, 18, 19, 20, 21 would give you, then that's not no OG, right? If a OG, man, his first obligation, in my opinion, man, in order to be able to give a person wisdom, is to remove his feelings from the equation. And just to keep it 100, man, some of these dudes is not doing this, right? You see these dudes, man, they ranting, they raving, they get upset, they get all angry and stuff. They, now they are, listen, man, when you go to a person that's an OG or whatever, and this dude is engaging in behavior or language or rhetoric that could potentially inflame the situation, that's not no OG, man. That's an emotionally unstable motherfucker. Do not confuse the two, man. Do not confuse the two. Because one thing, right, we know that as you get older, when you become an adult, as an adult, not even an OG, as an adult, you should be able to control your emotions to a certain point, right? One thing about being in prison, right, and anybody of any race, any organization, any faction will tell you this, man. Diplomacy is a prime necessary tool in prison. You must know how to speak to an individual, even when you disagree with what has been said or what has been done. If you are attempting to come to a peaceful resolution, that's not gonna affect everybody in a negative manner, right? So, when you go to a dude, man, and this dude is all emotional and he's using language, he's being disrespectful or whatever, he's saying things that to another individual who also sees himself as a gang member, or who also sees himself as a person who just wants respect or should be respectful, using words that's going to inflame the situation in all times, using words that's going to inflame the situation is not going to lead to a positive solution more likely than not, right? Like I said, you have these dudes, man, who suddenly get on YouTube and now they become extremely disrespectful when speaking to another individual. But many of us have been to prison. We have been in environments where respect is key. You have to be respectful. And so if you wouldn't be locked up in a cell screaming and hollering while you locked in the cell, calling somebody disrespectful names, why would you come to YouTube and do it? But then you call yourself an OG. It makes no sense. Or you call yourself a gangster, you're experienced, why would you do that? If you some of these individuals, right? And I've seen several of them. I've seen several individuals who one day they will say they're about their blackness. One day they're about their blackness. They want everybody to get along. 2 or 3 days later, when somebody black has just an opinion that they disagree with, they hop on YouTube, go to disrespecting that individual, calling him all out his name, foul names, so on and so forth, right? That's ultimate unacceptable behavior that's not to be respected. I'll just say that, right? Especially when all of us on YouTube are really just a call away. We're just a call away. We all know somebody who knows somebody. And if we're not on YouTube, we know other people's homies who may know people, right? Or just hop in the man's comments, say, hey man, you know what? I want to have a conversation with you. Many people on YouTube leave their leave their email in the descriptions. You know, many people have reached out to me and found me, so it's easy, right? And so if I was to have a problem with an individual, I'm gonna reach out to that person. I'm not just to come on YouTube, man, and get disrespectful and call this person all out of his name, then be right back talking about I'm about my blackness, right? Because we out here, we trying to live, especially those of us who have been to prison, right? We should be out here trying to live, trying to enjoy this freedom. It's so much, I'm telling you, man, it's so much better out here. We can accomplish much more than we ever would be able to accomplish in prison, especially now with the technology that they have out here with the social media, being able to, man, I've made videos, man, and people from Australia, people from Jamaica, people from all over the world, Africa, have reached out and said things to me. I mean, so first and foremost, I don't even understand why a person who has been in and out of prison or who has been to prison for any long period of time would even want to risk that, right? But you know, it's crazy, man. But like I say, you know, you have these individuals who are talking about their blackness, and the second somebody has an opinion that they don't like, they want to make a video and be disrespectful to that person. First and foremost, that person is allowed his opinion, whether you agree with it or not. You know, it's a lot of opinions I see on YouTube that I agree with, but it doesn't get me all riled up to the point where I become emotionally unstable and go to making videos and go into a rant, right? And so, you know, and this is why I say to you guys out there who are paying attention and watching these individuals, you have to watch what's being said from one video to the next video to the next video to the next video, right? A person, his foundation and his principles shouldn't change due to his feelings, right? For instance, if an individual, and this is just an example, right? If an individual says, hey man, under no circumstances, you know, I'm about motherhood, I'm about loving and respecting my mother, there should be no circumstances where he should go and disrespect his mother, right? So then say 2 days later, maybe his mother does something he don't like, then he hops on YouTube and he makes a video disrespecting his mother, because now he is in an emotionally different space than he was a few days ago. So now, basically what I'm trying to say is his foundation was never solid about what he was saying to begin with, right? If you are about your blackness and somebody black says something that you don't like, then reach out to that person. Reach out to that person, make a phone call, have a conversation with that dude. Don't come to YouTube using vile language and rhetoric that could potentially have you in a wreck, have that person wanting to do something to you, have you wanting to do something to that person. And that's what I say, man. You guys have to be extremely mindful of who you throw the title of OG on, man. OG could just stand for out of gas, a old guy. You know, so we have to be mindful, man, when we give these individuals these titles, that they earn these titles, right? Like I said, man, to come on YouTube and call people out of their name and all that whole type of stuff, man, especially as a gang member or as a former gang member or a person who lived in street principles or a convict. See, sometimes when you hear people, at least in California, when you hear people who have been to prison, they discuss the difference between, or they may say, man, I was a convict, I wasn't an inmate. It's because it's certain behaviors and lines of communication and just things that inmates done that convicts wouldn't do, and vice versa. It's things that convicts done that inmates wouldn't do. But when you have lived as a convict, right, for a certain amount of time, a lot of those things should be instilled with you, and they should also transfer with you when you make that transition to the streets, right? So you should move in some of the same areas and lanes as you did when you were in prison, because after a while, when you get used to doing something over a period of time, it becomes a form of discipline, right? And you don't allow yourself to get in certain lanes that would be problematic, right? So for those people who are in and out of prison, or who spent long times in prison, and they allow themselves to get back into a lane that could place themselves in prison, for one, they lack self-discipline. A lot of times those dudes are crash dummies. And a lot of times, some of those dudes are just straight up J-cats. just crazy dudes, right? And so all I'm saying, man, for you guys out there who watch these type of shows and stuff like that, man, pay attention to what's being said. If a dude says, man, listen, I don't wear socks that come up to my ankles, and then 3 days later you see him with socks that come up to his ankles, that means the dude is an untrustworthy, unreliable person. And sometimes people just hop on and they say things for the sake of saying them, or they just be talking, right? Sometimes I would be in prison, right? And I might hear a dude, and sometimes, people try to make impressions on people. And you hear a person say, "Oh man, I ain't doing no fighting. I'm not doing no fighting." Or a person might say, "You know what? If I get into a fight and I lose, I'm gonna come back and stab the dude." Well, then that would be in my mind that if I ever got into it with this dude, it wouldn't even be a point of fighting. It would just go straight to knife play, right? Because if this dude loses, he's not gonna be able to handle the loss. But now possibly, that dude was just talking. He was just trying to impress the people around him, right? But at times you don't necessarily know. You got people listening. And sometimes you are going to be held accountable to what you say, right? And so once again, a person should be allowed to have an opinion, man, without another dude being disrespectful, getting upset, especially when his opinion is not even directed at you per se, right? But that's what I say. Some of these dudes are extremely emotionally unstable, man. And so don't allow these dudes to influence your thinking. Don't allow these dudes to influence your get down is what I'm saying, man. Anyway, you already know who it is. It's your boy 16 to life. Resume normal program.
I ain't never told y'all when I ain't never testify. Thugged it on the main line. I never went to S&Y.